conceptual elements of modern stratigraphy is a sequence stratigraphy. So the discontinuity by essence, oil prospection with seismostratigraphy. So we have to be aware of this, that our teacher, our brain, geological brain, if we can speak like this, is really impressed by these bases. And third point, we are involved in what we call, since 20 years ago, the risk society. So there is a huge social demand against the question, the main question of the Anthropocene, which is vulnerability. Let's see, for example, not only focusing on geologists, but let's see, for example, Claude Schaeffer. Claude Schaeffer was born German in Alsace at the end of the 19th century. After the First World War, he was French. During the Second World War, he was German. After he was in 45, again French. And maybe there is a connection between this very complicated personal story and the invention after the war, Second World War, of the what he called seismological stratigraphy. He was the main archaeologist in charge of the site of Ugarit in present-day Syria, and he was able to demonstrate that around 3,400 years BP, there is a destruction layer that he connected in a very deterministic way into earthquake and fire from Crete, Cyprus, Caucasus, Syria, Palestine, and Asia Minor. So also archaeologists can be in the past can be affected by natural determinism. With Mariner again, very recently, even this paper published in a report, in scientific report, if I remember well, was not well accepted by the community. We try to work on metadata, and we analyze 135 tsunami events that have been scientifically published and accepted by the geological and archaeological community all around the Mediterranean coast, mainly Italy, Greece, mainly Italy and Greece. And we try to correlate. It's a correlation. It's not a causality. We try to correlate in red the event that can correspond from a statistical point of view with the Mediterranean storm periods defined in Croatia by Kaniewski, and define it's the same storm period, almost the same storm period, by Sorel along the northwest European coast. And you can see that this statistical correlation show that in red, 90% of events, of high energy events, can be interpreted as tsunami in the publication, can be interpreted as a storm intercepts. So the interpretation is questionable. And only 10% of the tsunami interpreted tsunami does not correspond to storm intercept. So there is a question really of statistical variance of 30 years, or no, let's say 20 years of publication of tsunami along the coast of the Mediterranean Sea. And for example, it's in the same publication, the insurance are very aware of this. The insurance, because they reimburse the question of when you have destruction. So in the last century, if you compare the depth and cost of tsunami versus storm between the early 20th century and present day, you can see that tsunami occur for 16% concerning the deaths, and 19% concerning the costs. So really, we have maybe to be more aware of what is reimbursed by the insurance than only to be upset by a term. It's why I have suggested to use the word, how can I move this? Voilà. I have tried to convince the community to avoid the term tsunami and to prefer high energy events, which is more modest and correspond more to our results. And preparing this lecture, I was very happy to see, if I'm going to the Google Books Ngram viewer, which is the most important bank of books in the world by Google, you go to the book Ngram, and you can see that using the keyword tsunami, you have the very sharp rise post Sumatra and post Fukushima, but it's like a wave. Now it's slowing down step by step because the mode is a little bit over, because archaeologists were very attracted by this interpretation, but now they understand very easily that it's probably a factoid. And I was also looking at recent publications, which are very interesting, because, for example, I picked 3 of them. Let's say the first one by Delille and Salomon about Ostia Antica, published in Earth Science Review 2 years ago, less than 2 years ago. And you can see the title, which is a very nice question. Paleo-tsunami deposits at the Tiber River mouth, do they really exist? And it's a very strict demonstration of the inexistence or the over-interpretation. This is from a geomorphological team. From an hydraulical team headed by Ronald Fox from United States, there is this interesting review showing that work done by storm waves was misinterpreted as tsunami because the equations are flawed, which is very interesting because it's really these equations were really abused in the last years. And finally, last year, Laurent Lespez from Paris published in Scientific Report a nice paper in connection with the discovery of a tsunami deposits from the Bronze Age Santorini in Maya in Crete, Impact Chronology Extension, a very sexy title, but you can see in the consequence, in the conclusion, a very modest conclusion. Only modest geomorphological consequence. So the tsunami is probably as modest as a big storm. So I think this is my last slide because I have prepared for 50 minutes. So some preliminary conclusion that we can walk and continue to think about it. I present the first one. The absence of proof is not a proof of absence. I think we must be very careful about this sentence. I think the objective of research dealing with high energy is to minimize identification errors and chronological imprecision, which are in most of the case very important. I think also all of us must be aware and must not confuse causality and statistical correlation. And we must think about a new terminology, more neutral, extreme event, high energy event. So as in all of type of research, it's only by multiple streams of evidence that we will be able to make inference about our distant past in an archaeological context. Thank you.